I've been looking through the archives of information I have, basically searching for some of McFarland's bullshit, where he was claiming that he hadn't had a raise in years. So I was on the search for that, and I ran into this little clip here from about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And this clip is somewhat thought-provoking because it gives you an insight into a couple of things. The first is the funding of the streetcar by Trimet. Now, Trimet likes to play the game that it's the employees that are dragging down the company because we cost too much. The fact of the matter is, in the 15 years I was there were 3 MAX lines installed. That's the green, the yellow, and the red. There was a west line installed, and there was a streetcar installed. Trimet is paying for all 5 of those lines. Of course, they had to cut service. It had nothing to do with employee benefits. It had to do with expansion. And of course, when you have an expansion, you have to man the expansion. So all these new lines, all these new rail lines requires personnel. I mean, even the West has its own direct for a part-time line that works in the morning and the night. It only works peak hour morning. They have $160,000 a year executive director. They have a $130,000 a year assistant director. Trimet spends millions of dollars subsidizing the streetcar. All that money came directly out of operations for buses. All of that came directly out of operations for buses. Now, they like to toe the line that they can't, the employees are the cause. The reality is the expansion is the cause. The bigger they get, the less they can afford to pay because their tax base doesn't keep up with the expansion. Now, how are they going to deal with that? Rather than stop the expansion, they want to cut our pay. That's their plan. They've said it publicly. They're going to pay for the expansion by cutting the employees and the retirees. Not acceptable. But when I was searching through this information, what I found is one of the reasons why they fund the streetcar is because they don't want the streetcar to be an independent entity from Trimet. In other words, it's Trimet hegemony. Trimet didn't want the streetcar board to be independent. They wanted it dependent on Trimet. That's why they fund it. And you're going to hear it for yourself in this clip.
Trimet, my understanding is, how are we, I guess the question would come this way, how are we financing the operations? If this is owned by the city has all the capital, the ownership, how does Trimet's financing really enter into the operations? Clarify that a little.
It's of a piece with the operation of the streetcar that we've had since the beginning, the partnership of actually operating the streetcar, starting in 2001, where the city and the private business partners were the ones who pulled together the capital to develop it. And then Trimet was brought into the partnership to provide part of the operating. And at the time when we opened it, we were providing approximately 2/3. We brought it down to something close to about half and half between the city and streetcar. We're still part of that agreement. And so the point here is actually about making sure that the permanent executive group, which Neil would sit on, is not a separate and somehow separately empowered group that can make its own decisions independent of this board and the city council. The point is that
You heard it yourself. He said we wanted to make sure the people who are the executive board of that streetcar are not independent from us in the city. So in other words, they fund it directly to keep an aspect of control on it. It's as plain as day. And all that money they go to fund that streetcar comes directly out of bus service. And now they want us, the employees, to pay to get that back. You know, it's one big giant scam, people. All of the board of directors, all of their baloney, they know exactly what's going on. They're just scamming us with their bullshit.